Okay, hello everyone. I wanted to first of all welcome everyone to our webinar today, Radon 101 for Integrators. I know you guys probably busy struggling to survive, find ways to generate growth, and we really appreciate your time. Allotting your busy schedule and allowing us time to present this webinar to you. We're going to start off with a pre-webinar poll. Maybe for about a minute, we'll let you put in your answers. About 80% of you have answered, maybe 10 more seconds. And I have to apologize. The camera, the video, for some reason, for Eric, my co-panelists, Ryan and Eric, is not working. These are good-looking guys, so it's a shame that you'll have to do with my mug. Hopefully, the setting resolves itself, but unfortunately, we're not going to be able to have video for everybody. Okay, we got 93% of the poll here. As you can see, the topic itself today, as it pertains to radon, as we anticipated, the majority are not so familiar with radon, which is great. We have a great session lined up today to get you to understand the basics, why it's important for every homeowner. And it's a wonderful way for you to start the conversation on wellness technology, healthy home with your clients. So we have 73% that have not been monitoring radon levels at all. We'll kind of go through what monitoring, the importance of monitoring and what it means. Second question is, how comfortable do you feel speaking to your clients about radon? Based on the first question, we can infer, and the results show that 77% wouldn't know where to start. So our goal today is really to get you to feel comfortable starting the conversation and to get you started on the path to bringing wellness onto your offering. So today we have our brand partner Airthings, the leading radon monitoring company in the market, to co-present. I'd like to introduce our panelists today. We have Ryan Ritchie, the Executive Vice President of Healthway. It's our Pure 365's filtration partner. They produce air purifiers and under the brand IntelliPure that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with now. Ryan, you've been in the wellness and air purification and radon space for 16 years, 6 of them with Spruce, which is a radon company. Can you kind of just quickly go over your experience and your...
Yeah, certainly. My expertise has always been involved in indoor air quality, specifically focusing on a lot of the things filtration is designed to fix, like particulates, VOCs, microorganisms. And for 6 years, I worked with Spruce Environmental Technologies, whose focus is solely on the indoor air quality problem of radon. So those two things do kind of have some separate attributes and differences, but those 16 years have wholly encompassed different levels and interests of indoor air quality.
Great. It's great to have you with us, Ryan. And we also have Eric Dustin, Business Development Manager for Airthings. Eric, you're an engineer by trade, and you've been with Airthings for 1.5 years. Can you kind of also speak to your experience and what you're doing these days?
Yeah, thank you. So I am an engineer, actually chemical and biological by trade, but I've taken various positions. I've been in the HVAC industry for probably around 10 years now, and really, like you said, moved into this position with Airthings about a year and a half ago. And I did it for a number of reasons. You see a trend, whether we're controlling homes or commercial, where air quality is constantly declining, and people are becoming less effective, and just health concerns in general are much more of prevalent, so to speak. So I saw kind of a need, and thought I would move into that realm, and it's been absolutely fantastic so far getting this opportunity. So thank you.
Wonderful. It's glad to have you with us, Eric, as well. So before we actually get into the topic of radon, there are some integrators here, probably first time being exposed to Pure 365. Just wanted to go over who we are, what our mission is, what our vision is, and how we can work together. So really, we intentionally focus on three missions that actually we see as one. We have a clear economic mission for sure. With all of our partners, vendors, everything that we set up, we want to ensure that we are all benefiting economically. It's the only way we can make an impact. And that's how we bring value to our partnerships, especially with all the integrators here today. Our core is really up the product mission. I want to kind of speak to this because we are always, for 6 plus years, we've always been focused on bringing the top real solutions to homeowners. We're not simply here to sell a product, we're here to sell a solution to a problem. And that's how we bring the most value to homeowners. So these are products that we've tested, we've used in our own homes to protect our families and our friends and the people that we care about. So as you get to know us, you'll kind of see that quirkiness and the stubbornness of bringing the highest quality. We don't settle for anything less than that. And yeah, you'll eventually see that over time. And then the third thing, the world has enough companies that sell just products and do business, but we really want to have a sustainable company that has longevity. And the way to do that is really to work together with stakeholders, both for-profit and non-profit, that really care about where the world is heading, especially with environmental issues, environmental justice, social justice, a lot of things that are happening right now. So we pledge a portion of our revenues to nonprofits in this arena. And we feel it's very important to work with organizations together to accomplish our greater goal. So our solutions portfolio, we've made it a priority to focus on what we feel will make the biggest impact, from the onset. And so our current offerings revolve around indoor air quality. And there are really 4 components of indoor air quality, where if you're really optimizing these levels, you're gonna ensure a quality, space that you can spend the most time where it will not harm your health. And so these 4 areas, advanced filtration, Ryan can, we've had webinars in the past that speak to this. Ventilation is extremely important now that a lot of talk about COVID-19 being aerosol, being spread through aerosols in the air and how important ventilation is. Humidity control, and we'll speak to that a little later. We have a webinar coming up in 2 weeks on humidity control. And then radon, which we'll speak to today. So these are really the 4 areas of indoor air quality that really, when you focus on maximizing and optimizing, you're putting yourself in a good position, whether it's your office or home. And so the Pure 365 platform is really about setting it and letting it work behind the scenes to keep these optimal levels with these 4. With these 3, radon is a different story. We monitor, but mitigation, it's something that we don't deal with right now. Water quality is the second most impactful on our physical health. And so once again, we have advanced filtration, and we use smart plumbing to ensure that the heart of the home When there's a heart attack, which is like a leak, you can deal with it very quickly, mitigating against major damage. And in the future, these are things that are near and dear to our heart. We know that it impacts health, and things that we are going to touch on after we really buckle down on indoor air quality and water quality. So biophilic design, sleep quality, circadian lighting, organic scents, soundscaping. We're really about creating an overall wellness environment in where you spend the most time. So what, Ryan and Eric, I never discussed this with you, but I'm gonna kind of pick on you guys a bit. What causes us the most stress in life? So just an example, I'm gonna show a couple surveys done by Harvard Public Health, right? What do you, Ryan, what do you think, what has been the most stressful moment in your life? What would you say?
These webinars. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Gosh, stressful. Being a father is very stressful.
Yeah. What, like, I know we share a common event in life where we lost people. Like, the most stressful life that was in your life. For me, it was when I lost my mom to cancer. And, as a kid, you don't really know much, right? But my mom would work overnight as a nurse. And if I knew what I knew at that time, I would just make sure she never worked overnight shifts. Studies show that anyone who works overnight shifts, their actually lifespan is less than the normal. Ryan, I know you lost your mom to cancer too, right?
Other disease, but yeah, I mean, that was obviously stressful that time as well. I like what Jeff says here. Homeschooling has been very stressful for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. As being a parent and the homeschooling, it's, what do you do? How do you make sure you're providing for them and keeping them healthy? Honestly, I mean, it's something that stresses me out daily, and preparing them for the world that we live in, or to the best of our ability, right?
Right. Yeah. And then there's talk of school not getting back in session in September, so that adds to the stress, right? So I'm gonna show these studies here. So this was done by Harvard School of Public Health. Most stressful events and experiences in the past year. I don't think COVID was part of this study. Otherwise, it would have had what we just spoke about. But as you can see here, the top two here are illness and disease, death of a loved one. Certainly, anyone who's been impacted by these things understand the severity of these life events. This was in the past year, and then they had another study that focuses on in the past month, and there's poor health condition, which is the runaway leader here. The point I'm trying to get at here is, if we live a healthy life, we cause less stress to our families because they don't have to take care of us, they don't have to worry about us. And that's really what we're aiming to do with Pure 365. A lot of people don't really know certain environmental conditions impacting them, and radon is a huge example. So we're going to jump in here, and we're going to first, I want to introduce Airthings. Eric, if you can kind of introduce your company and what you guys do.
Yeah, thank you. Of course. So as you say here, we were founded in 2008. So we've actually been around for a decent time. And, I think it's a great statement, being founded by three incredibly ambitious individuals. Not to dive into it too much, but the three founders are actually particle physicists working for CERN. And if you talk to these, they're very humble individuals, but they really were tired of working on spaceships and things that didn't have an impact on daily life. So they literally set out with the goal of improving the health and well-being of just everyday people. And that's the principle that Airthings was founded on. And we were the first ever, digital battery operated radon detection device. And I know that's a mouthful, but it's been completely revolutionary. And from that, we've been recognized, like you see here in the CES Innovation Award of 2019. One we're really proud of is the time best invention of 2019. We're in the top 100 for that. And that really, puts us with a lot of these other consumers, these other inventions, like Dyson, Samsonite, all of these, home names that everybody's heard of. And we have partnered with the American Lung Association and Lung Force. And again, so we're really striving to now move from just radon to full indoor air quality. But certainly radon is kind of that founding principle, and it leads us to air quality as a whole, which, most of our sensors are actually multi-sensors, where that you can look at really providing that good environment for the homeowner, or again, even in the commercial space. So it's been a really great journey that we're on, and continuing to grow.
That's great. That's great. We've always enjoyed our dealings with Airthings, and we're ecstatic to be a partner with you to bring radon awareness to more homeowners across America. So we're going to get into the crux of the matter here, radon, and since 70% plus really don't have much knowledge or experience with it, we're going to kind of give a high-level overview. I want to encourage all of our attendees and participants to ask questions real time. As they come in, we'll try to ask them while they're hot. But the first question here is, we're going to show a short clip from the Cleveland Clinic. It's a 45-second clip, just touching on radon. So let's take a look here.
That is something that we can inhale. It can get stuck with dust, and then we inhale the dust, and over a long time, it can cause damage in our cells in the lungs, and then eventually cause lung cancer. Especially if you smoke in the life, the risk of having a lung problem, especially lung cancer, can be higher than if you just smoke or if you just had exposure to radon.
So let's Ryan, I'm going to bring you in here. Can you give a brief description of what radon is exactly, building on what Dr. Choi just spoke about?
Yeah, so radon's a radioactive gas that comes from the natural decay of specific rock. A lot of times uranium, granite, other earth minerals can release this radioactive gas. As it travels up through the earth in its decay form, homes act as a natural vacuum to suck this radon gas into that environment. The more energy efficient we've been making our homes, the more suction these homes will actually have on the soil itself. So this very natural radioactive gas accumulates in very unnatural levels, therefore leading to things like lung cancer, which they can point to, and other issues that they're starting to determine can also be attributed to radon gas. But in essence, it's a naturally occurring radioactive gas that is accumulated in our homes at unnatural levels and can lead to lung cancer issues.
So when it says Class A carcinogen here, what's the difference between Class A and Class B? Is it like sometimes causes lung cancer, or is it pretty definitive?
Class A is a very definitive carcinogen.
So if you have radon in your home above certain levels, it's going to impact you, and there is a chance that you can get lung cancer, right?
Correct, but it's also similar to cigarette smoke, where some people can smoke their whole lives and never get cancer. Others can smoke at varying levels and get cancer. So it's not a guarantee that if it's in your home that you will have lung cancer, but the odds are certainly not in your favor, and it is something that should be removed from the home environment to reduce that risk.
Right. So Eric, I'm going to bring you in here. I mean, we can see here radon, it's colorless, odorless, tasteless, invisible. I'm sure your founders, because of these things, they created the monitor. You want to talk a bit about some other attributes of radon?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like Ryan said, if we look at the World Health Organization, for example, it can cause up to 14% of all lung cancers in any given country. Now that depends on prevalence of smoking, your energy efficiency, But it is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. So you have no idea if it's there. And I think that really attributes to why 70% of the people, even on this webinar right now, have said they're not testing. It's not something you think about it. It's almost like the old saying, out of sight, out of mind. It doesn't mean it's not there. It doesn't mean it doesn't pose a real threat or a real danger to us. So the only way you know is by monitoring it. And the problem is, you know, generally speaking, we get a charcoal test, and it looks at kind of a 48 hours, you know, snapshot in time, but radon very much fluctuates itself. And even with how we behave in our homes, we fluctuate. So you don't, you know, that 24 or 48-hour period of time is really not a good indication of what your radon level is over the course of a year. So again, you know, you can see right here, I think causes 6 times more deaths than house fires and carbon monoxide combined. So as much as we don't think about it, it really is an important, something we should look at and educate ourselves and your customers. And we are seeing an increase in awareness. So it's, you know, it's up to us to continue to educate people and spread that knowledge.
Right, right. And Ryan, last year when we spoke, you told me about a U.S. Olympian hockey player who got lung cancer, and eventually they found out the reason. You want to give a little insight into that?
Yeah, sure. Rachel Momberg is also now one of the biggest spokesperson. A lot of times when you get diagnosed with lung cancer at this stage, it's pretty much game over. You have a very short time to live. Rachel is one of the exceptions, where she was in her 30s, multiple children, Olympic hockey athlete, and determined to have lung cancer. And again, from radon, after they tested her home, was where they determined her exposure came from. So she's been a big advocate, but unfortunately, as people fight this issue, again, they don't have a very long lifespan. So many times the advocates and the people you have voicing the concern are not with us for a long time. And so they always need, you know, a next generation of people, unfortunately, that are still exposed to radon to continue to carry the message.
Right. And one thing I want to point to our integrators is, I mean, you guys are in homes, you guys are talking to homeowners. Something like radon is not expensive to find out, first of all, through monitoring. And then if there's high levels, it's not that expensive to remediate or set up mitigation systems. And so this is one way you can really make a huge impact on your clients, because you just never know which home is susceptible to radon. You can pretty much save a family or members of the family from contracting lung cancer. And that's a huge, huge impact, right, that you can make. We have a question that came in, and it kind of relates to the radon map here. Eric, maybe you can touch on this. So James wrote, I have seen a chart of where radon is present and broken into regions. It's pretty much that radon map, I think.
Yeah, great question.
Right. What can your equipment do to reduce radon in households and commercial buildings?
Yeah, so first, just you know, with regards to that map real quick, is that even though you see these yellow areas of low risk, that's not to say there's no risk. It's not to say that radon is not prevalent. So again, you know, even in low risk areas, there are plenty of homes that are significantly above the World Health Organization or the EPA recommended levels. But to answer the question in regards to how do you reduce it, so there are certified mitigators all across the country. There's actually a database online where you can look them up. So really what it comes down to is proper ventilation. So if you have incredibly high levels, the mitigators are generally going to seal in your sump if you have it, and put a small fan and vent it to the outdoor air, because it really is based off of pressurization, which Ryan hit on a little bit, and why we're sucking it into our homes essentially. That's also why it fluctuates. If it's raining outside, we have a high pressure zone, it's going to push even more radon into our homes. But if you don't, you know, if you're in a relatively low area and say maybe it's 5 or 6 picocuries of radon, you can actually oftentimes just through proper ventilation, if a home has the ability to bring in outside air, if you have an ERV system on it, for example, there's a lot of ways where you can turn in the air and bring in fresh air, and you can reduce those radon concentrations.
Wonderful. Yeah, I personally have a ventilation system that causes a bit of positive pressure. So that positive pressure prevents the radon gases from coming into the home. And I'll show you my levels in a little bit. I took a screenshot of that. So this, this slide here, Eric, too, it shows that, the number of people who are possibly at risk with radon. It's a lot of yellow here.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you know, even if you look at the EPA in the other one, the red, orange, yellow, you can see that Texas right there is still highlighted, Louisiana, Mississippi. And again, that's because even though it's a lower risk, it doesn't mean you're not at risk, because if you have your homes or commercial properties that are so incredibly energy efficient now and sealed up, all of that gas is getting trapped. And that's when the concentration really starts to build up and we really get that risk. So even if it's seeping in at a lower rate, it is still very much there.
Right. So
Yeah, Don, if I could add to that too. Even there are some scenarios where high rises that have been built, where traditionally you think of radon coming from the ground, they were built with cement from quarries that had radon. So they found radon even in high rises in certain areas like Florida and North Carolina. So really the best approach is for every home to be tested. And I think to everyone's point, the testing is pretty simple, pretty painless, and the solutions are, there are multiple solutions that are not costly to have it fixed if you do find the problem.
Yeah, and I also attended a session with radon specialists before, and they brought up the concrete, and now forward-thinking builders are actually testing the sand going into the concrete to see if it has radon, just to make sure that what they're building is healthy and not harmful. And radon can also, Ryan, if I'm not mistaken, it can also come out of your granite countertops. So like you said, it's important to get a monitoring in place to be absolutely sure if you are at risk or not.
Yeah, I think Don, the conversation really centers around, as we're moving down this path of a healthier home and solutions for that, we can't ignore all the aspects. We're not necessarily there to fix all the aspects. We're not going to get rid of mold for a customer if they have that on their wall per se, but we can help point them into the direction of solutions if they have the issue, but helping them determine their air quality, their radon, the humidity is a vital function, especially as exposure is increasing now as people have lockdowns and are spending more time in their home. Spending time in the home is what increases your risk, right? So as we're all doing that more, it's important to say, hey, we want to make your home as healthy and as safe as possible.
Right, right. And based on the poll we had, most people are not monitoring their radon levels, but I'm sure everyone's had an experience of actually having done a radon test before purchasing your home or renting your home, checking the radon level. Eric, can you kind of go over how it's been done the past 30 years and why your product is so vital in protecting people's health now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and that's the kind of the charcoal test right there that you see that I alluded to. It is incredibly inexpensive. You can go buy it in the store, but this is the where, you know, I mentioned the 48 hours. You can go to the store, you can set it up in your own basement, you send it away. So all in, you're going to be at about $65, $75, depending on where you're at, but it really is limited. You know, I always tell this actually happened about 4 weeks ago now. I recently moved to Indiana, and, you know, so we have a radon mitigation in my house. We're absolutely in a hot spot of radon. And my neighbor 2 doors down said, yeah, we didn't have it, really weird. And they don't have a system. And I said, well, how do you know you don't have it? And so the response is, well, when we bought the house, we had it tested. And it showed that we were below the EPA level, so they didn't get any mitigation. And so I kind of went through how radon fluctuates. It's very seasonal. You don't know if their windows were opened, things of that nature. So I said, hey, I've got this sensor, let's throw it in. And believe it or not, they were averaging over a week's time 16 picocuries. And so, you know,
Cool.
the World Health Organization says it should not be above 3. I know we have a slide in a few slides here that'll give you the recommended levels and kind of what it's equivalent to, but significantly over. So that's kind of how it was done. It's the cheap way. And where we move into what Airthings has developed, you see radon on our Wave Plus specifically, or even the Wave. It's a constant monitoring. It is, you know, every 5 minutes you're getting a radon level, and it's going to be sent to, we have an app, or you know, if you're remote, it'll use that connectivity if you pair it with a hub, so you can view that data from anywhere. And now you're getting 24/7 monitoring, and you can actually really be aware of if you do or do not have radon in your home, because again, things change. Even as simple as if you've got an old house and maybe it's actually not energy efficient and you don't have high radon levels, and you go through and you invest in some windows and blown in insulation, then you start tightening your house up. All very good things from an energy perspective, but now you're potentially trapping radon levels in. So it's something else you still want to be conscious of, and you can educate the homeowner on it's a possible side effect, so to speak. So the only way you're going to see that is by having that constant monitoring.
Right, great.
Yeah, Eric, yeah, to add to that, even the EPA's recommendation is at least to test every 2 years.
Yep.
The reason the short-term test of 2 days are popular and in the market is because a lot of real estate transactions are where testing happens. And so they need to have quick turnaround time, not because it's the best approach, but it has been what is the most acceptable to the real estate market as well as health advisors. So yeah, it's not the best way to do the short term, but long term is really the best approach to take.
No, great point, Ryan. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So for those who are registered Pure Pros, if you go into your account, you'll be able to see access to the Wave Plus. That's the one we're offering to you guys. It's the premium option. And then we also have the hub there. So it's Bluetooth. If you're home, you can sync it up, but when you're remote and you want to know, you got to have the hub for that Wi-Fi connectivity. And you get dealer pricing when you go in. For those who don't have a Pure Pro account, you can go to the website, go to the bottom, register, and you'll have access to these products at dealer pricing. And one thing, Eric, when you were saying, it reminded me when, like, I have a radon fan, and that's what pulls the radon out of my home through subslab pressurization. And I had no idea the fan went dead. So I'm thinking that I'm getting protection and the radon is being sent outside the house, but you don't know the fan is dead. And then, so after I got the Wave, you know, we get outages once in a while. And when the outage went on, I wasn't really thinking about it, but then I got the alert on my Wave saying my radon level shot to like 10 picocuries. And then I realized the power was cut off to the fan. So it just moved everyone to sleep on the top floor to mitigate, you know, reduce the risk. So that's how important something like the Wave does. You don't think about it, but it alerts you and protects you. Ryan, I mean, Eric, is there anything you wanted to add about the Wave Plus that we're offering to our integrators?
I think we've covered a lot. You know, I think what's going to be important too is they are all wireless battery operated, and you can see all the other sensors if you want to look at it. So in terms of, you know, a time frame, we ship, you know, all of these come with a double-sided tape or a single mounting screw. So it's a matter of 5 minutes to get this up and running. And certainly we're talking, you know, mostly about radon for this webinar, but you know, also TVOC, CO2, temp, humidity, and pressure are all going to be, you know, also incredibly important aspects of air quality for a home. And they are very much related. And even again, you know, other contexts is COVID-19 or just viral transmission, you know, CO2 with the normal, you know, productivity and cognitive performance. So there's a lot that goes into it. So I'd encourage everybody to please check it out on the website too. We've got some pretty good information about each one of those parameters and what they could, how they could help your home.
Right. And certainly whether it's web-based or on the app on a phone, you can get access to all of these metrics. And we are actually in the process of integrating it onto our Pure 365 app as well. So you can have everything on one app. And, these are my readings this morning. As you can see, pretty decent levels at 0.5 picocuries per liter. You can also track by the weekly average, the monthly average, and the yearly average. So, like Eric said, it fluctuates over the year and you get a very good sense of where your levels are at and if you actually need to do something about it to reduce your risk. I'm curious, Eric and Ryan, what are your levels at home?
Well, I live on a stilt house, so I am safe from radon.
Good.
So mine is actually going to be about 0.2, but again, I have a mitigation system in here, so mine are incredibly low also.
Fantastic. So what do these numbers mean? Eric, you want to get us through this in terms of what the numbers mean?
Yeah, so this really is, like you see, the picocuries. It's going to be the concentration, that PCI per liter. So I think fundamentally, if you look at even levels at 1.0 is equivalent to smoking 2.5 cigarettes per day. That's kind of a terrifying number to me. So again, it's, I had, in terms of my system, I had an extra large ventilation and fan put in because I don't even want to be at 1.0. And to related to the environment, your, outside air, generally you're at about 0.04, 0.05, somewhere around there. And that's really what I wanted my house to be at. So you don't have any kind of enhanced risk, but you can look at, so the World Health Organization is going to be at that kind of 3.0 is where you should really take action. So look at 4.0, 200 x-rays. Again, pretty frightening. I know every time you go for an x-ray, you get the giant heavy vest on because they don't want it to expose you to even one x-ray, if it's not needed. So they're really conscious of where that's being directed. So again, if you're getting exposed to over 200 chest x-rays, that's pretty frightening, quite honestly. And so the EPA recommends you take action at 4.0, which is, to Ryan's point, where we get residential or home transactions, is where you either have to sign off on not doing a radon test or you have to be under that 4.0. So that's really where that comes from. But again, to us, the lower you can get it, the better, quite honestly. You really want it to be under 1.0, in my opinion.
If I could add to that too. The deaths that we rate in the U.S. are 25,000 radon-induced lung cancer deaths a year. That number is based on the average concentration of 1.3. So unfortunately, they have set 4 as an action level, which at the time, 20-something years ago, the leading industries determined that this is where they feel comfortable positioning the capability of removing radon. We now know we can obviously achieve much lower reduction with the techniques that are out there. So 4 is really not a great number. If all homes had 4 picocurie, we'd have over 100,000 deaths a year, enough to have a nationwide lockdown, right? So just something to consider, that 4 as an action level is not really great guidance. That would be the equivalent of your child smoking 10 cigarettes a day inside their home, which is something anyone should be uncomfortable with. So as low as humanly possible is really the goal. As Don showed, he's at 0.5 using ventilation. He could probably be less than that if he put in an active mitigation fan. But even at 0.5, that's like smoking 1 cigarette a day. So just things to consider. The action levels are guidance levels. They are not really based on risk reduction of death, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I usually tell everyone, like Eric, you said, I think it's got to be under 1 to give you a little peace of mind, but lower the better, as close to 0 as possible, right? We
Yeah,
have,
absolutely.
Eric, we have a few questions coming in. I just want to address. Ed asked, how long are the sensors actually good for?
Yep. So these sensors, they are actually have an auto balancing calibration, so to speak, that is based off of a 10-year life expectancy.
10 years, right. And then Stephen asked, how many Airthings or units are needed per home?
So that really depends. You know, honestly, I'll say this. So a monitor can cover approximately 2,500 square feet. And now that's disclaimer there is if it's open space. So generally what we like to do is you want one at least in the basement if there is a basement. And I say that because your basement's always going to be your highest concentration of radon. That's not to say it won't go into your first floor or second floor. And actually, as Ryan even said earlier, you know, I've done commercial buildings where we've seen radon above 4.0 on the 15th floor. Quite simply, you're still, if your home is very airtight, you're just recirculating your air. Your filters are not going to take radon out, so you'll actually be taking it from the basement and sending it to your second floor, your first floor. So I'd say at a minimum, you want one in the basement. If somebody really wants to monitor and get a good idea, they could, of course, put one on every floor, for example. It's really going to be kind of their comfort level.
Great, great. So what we want to show here is it's something that our integrators, you can bring more value on each visit to your client. Like you can talk about radon and get them to purchase a Wave Plus, but you know, even before then, when you're in the home anyways, you can have one of these units, plop it down. In 1 hour, you'll have a fairly accurate reading on the radon levels, and then you can continue that conversation there. Eric, you want to kind of speak a bit more about the Corentium Plus?
Yeah, so this really is, you know, as the Wave Plus we've talked about is really for, you know, it stays in the home. It takes about 7 days to really get accurate radon readings because it's calibrating itself. So that's something you would purchase and then kind of resell to the homeowner and leave there. Whereas this device is more for you to purchase and use. I think the concept here would be, you know, as you go into a home, you could set this up and almost present it as a free test, for example. Whereas while you're doing everything else you're doing in the home, you put this there, you're going to get your first radon reading within an hour. Now, again, that's a very short-term window, of course, as we just talked about 48 hours, you know, ideally you're monitoring it constantly, but it can give you a pretty good baseline. You know, right off the bat, if you see within an hour, you've got readings of 10, 15, which is not unheard of, even 8, 5. You could start, again, in terms of starting the dialogue, I'll bring it back to our original questions. It's a great starting point, starting the conversation and say, hey, we did this free test. Do you know what radon is? Just so you know, I installed this, you know, did this while I've been working and your radon levels are X. So that really is meant for you guys to kind of get that quick glance and start the dialogue. Right. There are certified devices. This is tamper proof, et cetera. So without diving into the details, really great where you get quick readings.
But yeah, I would add to that. I would add to that just for communication to the customer that would not be enough time for a verified test. But as he mentioned, it would be a good starting point for the conversation, and then stating that you would need longer term numbers to give an accurate reading. But if, you know, short term, it does give a dialogue conversation. You just want to say that is where their radon levels are.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of integrators, and one thing that I'm always happy about, and it's unfortunate if you enter a home and you do a reading and it's high, but when you alert the family and you educate them, they are so thankful. Then they start asking you, what about this? What about that? So for our integrators, this is an excellent opportunity for all of you to get that conversation going. And yeah, this is a great tool to be able to do that. We had a question, what is the dealer pricing? Right now, there are typically around 15% for our integrators. So just wanted to answer that question. There was another question, what is the PCI per liter? It's picocuries per liter. Right here, the 8 here, it's becquerels per cubic meter. This is more of the European standard, but in the US, we go by picocuries per liter, just so you know.
And a picocurie is a radioactive term. So Madame Curie, Marie Curie, is named after that. So it's a measurement term for radioactivity.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. And Ryan, we have a question. I think it's in your wheelhouse since you are based in Florida. Where Stuart's asking, where's the best placement for homes with no basements like Florida?
The idea to do a test is usually in the lowest of the home. So if you have a unfinished basement is living in there, that's not really a valid need to test. But if that basement you could convert into a bedroom one day, then yes, you should test there, because the lowest lived in part of the home is the first entry spot for radon. So if you have a one-level home, you can test anywhere in the one-level area, but I would typically try to do it out of the most ventilated space, not in the main hallway or right by an HVAC system. So if you do not have a basement, then the lowest potential lived-in area of the home is where you could test next.
Great, great. Thanks, Ryan. So Eric, we're pulling up the radon map. It's something you guys came up with. You're using your data, anonymously to give people an idea of what real-time data is through your monitors. Can you kind of speak about this?
Yeah, so this is very similar to, you see the EPA's map that we've talked and looked at a little bit already. Where this is different is that, again, we're taking all the data that we receive from the connected devices, so the Wave Plus, the Pros, et cetera. And again, we're all putting it into a database. It is not tied to anything other than a geographical location, so to speak. But we're showing the average radon levels. It is an interactive map and it is live. So you can constantly go on and see where we have sufficient data. That is, obviously we want this map to be completely filled at some point as more sensors are deployed. But it's just giving you that real-time data again of, generally speaking, what's the risk in that area.
Right. No, it's definitely a good guideline.
And this is to me, this is interesting because the company I worked for in the past had done the short-term and long-term tests, and so just having that data. I mean, people in the past said Florida never has radon, and you can see Florida with these tests, and you can see how red it is. California, people say there's no radon, but clearly from the tests being performed, that's showing up. So this is really enlightening data points and data sets to see how widespread the issue can be.
It just speaks to how every individual home needs to be monitored, right, and tested. That's the only way you can make sure.
Yeah, and I think one of the
Correct.
critical differences, the EPA map is very relative, whereas ours are tied to those guidelines. So if you see a red square, then the average is over that 4.0. And even yellow is going to be between 1 and 4, so it's still something you want to impact or you want to look at, right? So again, it's rather than being relative, it is tied to the numbers and the rates. So it's really good information.
Thanks, Eric. So although Pure 365, we are actually providing true solutions when it comes to advanced filtration, ventilation, humidity control. With radon, we're not really involved in the solution aspect of it. We really want to focus on the monitoring. And so a lot of questions from integrators are, okay, what if we set up monitoring? Our client comes out at 4 picocuries per liter. What do we do? So what we usually recommend is you can go to radon.com. find a local radon professional, look at all the ratings of the companies in your area, pick the best one, interview several of them. And then you just, what I did in the past was I would identify the highest rated and best one. If I talk to them, I can kind of see if they're really committed to providing excellence. And then I work out a referral agreement, like 10%. And then any referrals I give, you get something in return. But that's something that we recommend for integrators to do when a reading is really, above 1, 2 level. Okay, a few more questions here that I want to pose, or that have been being asked. Can you explain, Eric, how the Wave Plus measures the air pressure?
Yeah, so we have a barometric pressure sensor in there. So really that is, I guess, I can provide the specifics on the sensor after this if you'd like, but we're measuring barometric pressure.
Right. Okay, a lot of information, and we're running up on time. So what I want to do is I want to give people, especially integrators, we know wellness technology, healthy home is somewhat of a new topic for most of you. And every webinar we have, we just want to get you to feel more and more comfortable speaking about it and committing to learning more about it. So these are basic tips that we always give that you can incorporate into your life. And then you can start speaking to your clients about it as well. It's just very basic stuff. Obviously, we're going to delve deeper as we move forward. But first thing, obviously, based on today's, you want to check your radon levels. There's no reason why anyone should be one of the statistics or within the numbers of the close to 25,000 a year that pass away from lung cancer contracted because of radon. Absolutely avoidable. You want to clean air with an air purifier that can deal with ultra fine particles. These are smaller than 0.1 microns. And Ryan, I want you to chime in because Dr. Choi from Cleveland Clinic, he said specifically the radon attaches to dust particles and then they enter when you breathe it in. So tell us why it's so important to reduce your ultrafine particle levels as well.
Yeah, if you could imagine the particles, especially the ultrafine, being carriers to the different radioactive elements of radon gas. So as radon decays, it becomes lead and bismuth and polonium. That's why it's radioactive. So these things are going to attach to these particles and hitch a ride into our space, into our lungs, and into our body. And so when you have an air cleaner that is removing those resources for it to transport to you, you're going to reduce, it's really not just radon, but even the viruses like COVID-19 that we talk about today. All of these different things hitch a ride on particulates. So if you can remove those from the environment, the main carrier to you would be reduced.
Right. So these topics that we're talking about, like ventilation, they're not all separate. They all relate with each other. So when we deal with and present solutions, they're working in tandem with each other to create the most optimal environment, as we can see in this particular case. So another thing is turning on the ventilation hood when cooking. A lot of studies out there that show that when you're cooking, the VOC levels, CO2 levels shoot up, and the pollution levels are akin to being worse than in any place on earth for the 30 minutes to an hour, even after you finish cooking. So it's really important to turn on your ventilation hood, open windows when the air quality is good outside, removing all of those particulates and combustible particulates from your breathing zone. Candles, incense, fragrances are 30% of them are known carcinogens. People have no idea. They just like the smell. Be very wary of that, of introducing it in a tight house. So we always recommend using organic essential oils. A lot of people exercise outside, a little more cautious these days, but you want to know what the air quality is outside, because when you're breathing in heavy, the air is going deeper into your lungs, and if there's nitrogen dioxide and particles from cars and industry, especially in urban areas, it's actually canceling out a lot of the good stuff from the exercise. So that's another thing to be wary of. And then keeping humidity levels between 40 and 50%. I don't know if you guys track your humidity levels. A lot of thermostats have the levels. Really important to do those. So, and this is a segue into our next webinar. As you can see here, there's an optimal zone between 30 and 60. We always recommend between 40 and 50. But you can see that viruses are pretty much handicapped when the relative humidity is at 50%. So a lot of buildings now, because of COVID-19, they're kind of adhering to these studies and trying to control their humidity levels. And lastly, you guys, everyone who's attended here will get an invitation to our webinar in 2 weeks on humidity control. And I think we've addressed most of the questions here. So any parting words, Eric and Ryan? Eric, we'll start with you. Our integrators, any parting words on when they're in the home? What are the first effective talking points for them? Maybe to start the conversation?
Yeah, sure. You mean specific just to radon there, Don, or just the air quality? And
either or, because we're dealing with everything here. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, especially right now, if you keep it extremely current, you know, right now as we're spending more times in our home, people are looking at how to focus on the health of their home and how that impacts their body. So we're providing a host of solutions, from testing of your air quality to monitoring to devices that can increase and improve the quality of air and therefore your life inside of your home.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. And just building on that too is, you know, look at how much more time people are spending in their homes. Again, I think keeping it relevant to the time right now. It's funny, we joked around in the beginning about homeschooling. That is, you know, that's a reality right now. People that used to go to the office are just staying home. So I think it's more important than ever that we really understand what's going on in our home, what's the environment that we're in. So that's really, I think that's where the conversation starts, and it's radon's one portion of that, the humidity, the CO2, all of it really does play together, the particulate. So it's really just making sure that you're honestly in a safe and productive environment.
Great. So Pure 365 is really turning what's invisible and making it visible for people, understand where they're at, and then to provide the true solutions that can address those issues. And that's what that's what our mission and vision is, to make healthier homes all across the globe. And today, I believe I'm going to put one more poll up. And
while you're doing that, I'll quickly add, there's a tremendous amount of information on radon and these other topics on the EPA's website. So always to learn more, finding those other resources are a great place to start looking. That'll give you some great information, talking points, data points to really share with your clients and people.
That's great. And if you guys, the participants, don't mind filling out the poll, that'll help us a lot. But for those who haven't, please sign up as a Pure Pro partner, and you will have access to our iPad app. It has all our sales and educational tools. You'll be able to see the slides and also see the recording, and you'll be able to see other webinars we've done in the past, and a lot of training materials, case studies, spec sheets, everything you need to know to educate you and your team to bring more value to your clients and create more healthy homes. So at this time, I wanted to pass on my appreciation for all of you to join this webinar, and specifically to you, Eric and Ryan. You gave so much great insight. I really appreciate it, and I hope we can maybe have future webinars where we delve in a little more deeper.
Anytime.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us.
It's been great. Thank you.